What is up, everyone? This is another episode of Design to Convert, and I am very excited to have Alex Golick, the founder of Intensify. He says that they are the #1 digital marketing agency in Los Angeles. So we're going to dig into that. They do a ton of great work for not just e-commerce brands, but also SaaS businesses and some other businesses as well. And one of the cool things about Alex that I have to shout out is that he is actually an investor in Replo too. So Alex, thank you so much for joining me on Design to Convert. Thank you for supporting Replo and welcome. How are you doing today, man?
Good. Excited to get started.
Hell yeah. So let's jump right in. Take us to the very beginning of your career. What were you doing? And then how did you find your way into the D2C e-commerce space?
Okay. So beginning of my career, I started at a video game agency and I was there for about 2 months and ended up getting promoted like right out of college and managing like 50 people, which was really crazy. I was there for about a year.
What did you do? What was like the thing that you did that like right straight out of college, like all of a sudden like managing a small army of people?
Yeah, I mean, it was not the best job. It was working on a project for Call of Duty. I was making like really like minimum wage pretty much. A lot of people weren't college graduates, but I just pretty much started doing the job of the people above me like really quickly. So I just kind of like put myself in that position, and then they were like, okay, well, you're already doing the job and we need another person in this position. So it kind of made it easy for them.
Nice. So you're working. Yeah, keep going. Keep telling us the story.
All right. So I went from there to being a business analyst at a marketing agency. And then I became a manager there. And while I was there, I had a friend who was running the e-commerce portion of an apparel company. And she was working with an agency and they were getting like 0 sales from all of their advertising. So she asked me if I could take a look at what they were doing. And I looked and I was like, oh, wow, this is all pretty terrible. So she was just like, well, can we just have you manage it? But I have to tell my company we're hiring a company. So can you just start a company? So I started one, went and got a DBA like 2 months or 2 weeks later, and then worked with her. And then from there, I was kind of hooked and wanted to start getting more clients and growing it. So I was at this marketing agency. I left there to go do data analysis for DirecTV. Was there for like 6 months or so, kind of driving about an hour a day to get there. During that time, I would be like on the phone with clients, potential clients. I'd be like sneaking out on my phone in the middle of the day to like make changes to advertising. And then I'd be driving an hour back, going straight to the gym, going home and working for like 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, just really burned out after like 5 to 6 months of that.
Mm-hmm. But that's like the one of the great like entrepreneur stories. Like you've got the grind, you've got this opportunity that fell into your lap, in a way, and then you capitalize on it in a big way. So that first client that you got, and there's a bunch of stuff that I don't want to dive into here, but like the first client that you got was a friend, and you took a look at their account, you audited, some other agency's work. What were like the things that stood out to you where it's like, yikes? What were like the big yikes items that you saw, if you remember?
Oh man. Yeah, it was a while ago. So this was like probably 2014. It's like 9 years ago. I think, okay, so it was Google ads that they were running. It wasn't Facebook ads. And it was, back then, like broad keywords were like the worst. There were lots of broad keywords. And as a result, they were matching to like a lot of irrelevant search terms. So they really weren't bidding on relevant terms. A lot of like display advertising, which I've rarely seen work for anybody on Google Ads.
Even today.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it work for like 1 or 2 clients where we kind of cracked it for like prospecting too. But I never have seen it work for e-commerce ever.
Okay, so you spot these issues. Obviously, like you go in, you clean it up. That's client number one. You go over working at DirecTV, doing the analytics stuff. What kind of data does like DirecTV have you analyzing? Or like, what are you looking at on a day-to-day basis?
Man, so it's so weird the contrast between working for like a humongous corporation like DirecTV. AT&T bought them while I was there, so they were like the fifth largest company in the U.S. So, and then doing that, and then like doing your own thing, or coming from like a smaller marketing agency, because you work within a department, on like the smallest thing. So I was there. I was working in the commercial retention, or non-residential like retention department. So I was looking at the data on all of their customers who were not residential. It could be like airplanes, bars, all kinds of airlines, bars, all kinds of stuff. And looking at churn and trying to figure out like what are the characteristics of customers that are likely to churn, and how can we like preemptively stop them from churning.
Oh, that's okay. That's pretty interesting. How did the stuff that you figured out there, or that you worked on back there, how does that impact some of the stuff that you do now? Like, any philosophies that you carried over that you learned there that you still advise clients on?
I think it's helpful in that like it got me in the mindset of like thinking about churn and thinking about retention, which is definitely important with an agency. And big businesses like that they're trying to preempt it. They're trying to predict like who's likely to churn and what can we do to like get them to like be in a longer contract. So I think some of that thinking helped. And then I just think in general, like data, quantitative thinking is like helpful with marketing. A lot of people talk about like, oh, I analyze data-driven approach, whatever in marketing. But I don't think most people actually do much in the way of like data analytics and marketing. They look at one number and they see it's higher than another one. Like it's not generally crazy stuff that anybody is doing. We do some like data stuff, but it's not that much crazier than like what anyone else is doing either.
Mm-hmm. So you've got this job at DirecTV, you've got client number one kind of in the bag. What was the process of getting client number two and on? Like I think you had mentioned earlier, either before or after we jumped on the recording, you said that you were like driving to work at DirecTV. It's like an hour commute, and you're taking these sales calls, right? So like, how did you find these other clients?
It was all just talking to people. I would just speak to people. I feel like, and maybe this is part of why, like, if you really like what you do, it's like easier to grow, or easier to like excel. I was really like excited about marketing, so I was talking about it to everybody, and then people would be like, "Oh, actually, I know this person so and so that might need help," and I'd be like, "Great, let me talk to them." And then just being enthusiastic and getting on the phone with people, and just being excited to talk about like how they could potentially grow their business.
And that was back in 2016, right?
That was 2014. Well, 2016. Yeah,
2016. So, point, you've been in the game a lot longer than, some of the, even like the big names in like the DTC space, right? Like a DTC is like this like small bubble world, DTC Twitter, at least, where we spend a lot of our time even. What has that near decade of experience shown you as far as just general philosophies on growth and how, I guess, like how you like think strategically about helping brands in general? Like what are like some of like the top 3 lessons from the last 10 years?
Oh man. Top 3 lessons from the last few years.
Or even the top 1.
I think that there's I think I always kind of like have my eyes peeled for like what's new and exciting, where there may be opportunity. I think that a lot of the the opportunity is captured by like early adopters on like any platform. So I think that that's something to look out for, because I mean, earlier on, CPMs are going to be cheaper, and if big companies are going to take forever to get onto like new platforms. So I definitely think always keeping your eye out for like what's new and where there's opportunity is how you can like do really well. And I think that a lot of like D2C businesses that grew a bunch probably grew off like just Facebook ads. And like most companies can't do that at this point. So I think that the timing is super important. So that's how I think you have like the greatest chance of success, is like find some like vehicle for traffic that works really, really well, and take advantage of it.
Do you have like a favorite traffic source? Because I know like some people are like super beholden to Facebook.
At this point, it's still Facebook ads. I mean, if you have a business where like the value in the product is the function of it and not the branding, Google ads can work pretty well. So somebody's looking for like a hammer, they'll Google, find a hammer, and they'll buy it. If somebody's Googling and they're looking up like people don't really look up like some specific kind of like makeup and then just be like, oh, it's the kind of makeup I want, I'm going to buy it. Like the value's all in the branding. So Google ads is not going to be great for it. But people that have like really functional products, those you can do well with on Google ads.
One of the big conversations that I'm hearing a lot of now is like allocation of spend and like when you should diversify the channels, right? So basically like essentially two sides to this. There's the side of like, okay, whether you're trying to get to 50 million, 100 million, you just need like one really good traffic source that you just iterate on, and you don't really need to diversify. And then you have the other camp, which is like, you should be actually get to like, $500,000 in sales or $1 million in sales in a year. Then you should start adding in, X, Y, and Z additional channels. How do you think about that? What's your like primary approach, or where on the spectrum do you lie on as far as that?
I mean, I think it's still pretty much between Google ads and Facebook ads. And I think that when, like I was saying before, like if it's a product where the value's in the function, then like you should definitely be trying both. If it's not, I might not even really worry too much about Google ads. Although like for apparel, like Google Shopping can do pretty well still. The shopping placement does well.
So walk us through like some of your current client roster and the type of work that you're doing for them. Is it just ads? Are you doing, email marketing? What are some of the services that you typically run?
Yeah. So, we're probably about like 70% e-commerce, 20% SaaS, 10% is like brick and mortar. And in terms of services, we keep it really simple. We do digital advertising, SEO, and CRO. We're trying very much to like stay in our lane, but like, I think given the current landscape for e-commerce companies and how Facebook ads is evolving, I think we're going to have to like expand on what we're doing a little bit, in a couple directions. So, whereas we used to maybe just like manage advertising, and then like CRO would be very much like, all right, we're going to run like smaller A/B tests. On the advertising side, we're getting involved in like editing existing creative, and that's been happening over the past couple of years maybe. And I think we're reaching the point where we're going to need to just create a bunch of like original creative for all kinds of clients, because a lot of people find it very hard to get content created, and it's very hard to create like really great content. And it's just super necessary at this point for Facebook ads to perform well. And then on the CRO side, we're starting to use more tools like Replo, or we're using basically, I mean, we use Google Optimize and whatnot to do like the smaller tests, but Replo is fantastic for like testing like an entirely new landing page. And I think we're going to expand into that more and more. because when the levers of like improving ads right now are much more so like creative and like maybe like landing page, maybe offer, much more so than it used to be like what's the structure of the campaign.
So let's go deeper on that. Because I'm really curious to hear about like I guess before we go deeper on the process there.
Yeah.
Walk me through like the people you have on staff, because it's not just you, right? Like you've got a team now. What is the team structure?
We're pretty lean. But we have I have a right-hand person who's our director of operations. We have an SEO specialist who are both full-time. And then we have writers. We have a web developer. And that's really the majority of it. We use some contractors here and there. And we're hiring right now for a full-time position for a content creator. That way we can really move into creating content.
That's actually, I don't think I've heard any agencies hire an internal content creator like that. That's actually pretty clever. Was there inspiration there?
Just that I think it's really necessary. Content is just so important right now. And I think we just need somebody who is doing it full time, and we need somebody who really has great ideas for like creative briefs and scripts and whatnot. Or can look at like data coming out of Facebook ads and say like, oh, what's the thumbs up ratio here? Or what's like your ratio of like through plays over like 3-second plays? Like, where are we losing people in the ad, and how can we improve it? Or like, what's the click-through rate like after people have seen the whole ad? How can we improve like with like a CTA at the end?
Mm-hmm. When you're thinking through the levers that you can pull for a client, like do you start with the offer? Do you start with the creative that they have? Like, what is your typical like process when you're like, okay, I say I have like a skincare company, I come to you, I say, hey, I need you to help me get more sales, drive retention, etc. But like, what is the process there?
Yeah, I probably starting with the offer, a combination of offer and landing page. You can send like great traffic to like a really bad landing page, really bad customer experience, and you're not going to get great results no matter what. So I really think that that's like kind of like number one. And the other big thing there is you need the average order value to be high enough to support the cost of acquiring customers. So on Facebook ads, and I keep saying Facebook ads because honestly, like most companies are built off of Facebook ads. People, you talked about diversifying traffic earlier, like tangent here, but like I don't think you're going to find some other source of traffic. And I think it's only necessary when you're spending like nosebleeds amount of money on Facebook ads. And I mean like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a day on Facebook ads. I think when you're under that, like you don't even need to worry about it unless you've got amazing creative for TikTok and it can work there. But yeah, back to offer, it's, the average cost on Facebook of acquiring customers is probably something like $20. You have your COGS, you have other variable costs in there. You're going to need a product that probably is at least like $40. You're going to need, or rather an average order value that's at least $40, if not more. And the more you can increase that average order value, usually the more profitable it's going to be, because you have costs like the cost of shipping, costs like other costs in there that are going to make it expensive to get a customer. You might as well get as much money as you can on that first purchase.
The first order profitability thing is another piece that like people come up with. I don't know when it was said, but or exactly who said it first, but Russell Brunson is the one that I always quote when I say this. The person that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins, which in many cases, like it's like, okay, you might be losing money to acquire a customer. But now like first order profitability is like the thing to have. It's like the it topic. Like what's your take on that? Like, how do you budget for that?
I mean, I think profitability is really about like lifetime value over CAC. It's not necessarily just about first time customer. You probably have to take it in being profitable on the first order. I think it just depends. There could be a cash flow problem, right? Depending on how long it takes before somebody comes back and purchases. But if you do have people coming back and purchasing relatively quickly, or it has like a high repurchase rate, then I don't think you have to worry about it as much. And when you say like acquire, like whoever can spend the most to acquire a customer wins, I think that might be true in areas where like the product's like more commoditized. But I don't think that's true no matter what. And it's also like, win what? Like, what's the goal of the company? If the goal of the company is to sell, and their like EBITDA is like super low, then I don't really think they're winning anything, because they can't really sell for like a high, like a large amount of money. And then the other problem there is like, yeah, maybe you can. The other problem companies can face is if you can be profitable on that first order, but say you're trying to scale at a rapid pace, you have to have enough money to go and buy more inventory. And unless you have enough profit margin in there, you're not going to be able to continue to just up and up and up the amount of inventory that you're buying, if there's like barely any profit coming in.
Right. I was talking to another head of growth at a brand a few weeks ago, and he told me that when they were first starting to scale their business, one of the co-founders of the business, she took like a $500,000 HELOC out, like a home equity line of credit.
Oh, yeah, okay,
yeah. So like a line of credit against your house, right? It's and that's what they use to like scale their business. They scaled a ton, but it's just like crazy to hear. I mean, I think people don't realize just how cash intensive physical product businesses can be, or are not can be, but are, and how much like discipline is required on the cash flow management side to like really keep them growing.
Yeah, for sure. There definitely is, and that's somebody with high risk tolerance. That's I mean, good for them. I have really high risk tolerance too. I love risk. So, what's
the biggest bet you've taken? Are you a sports gambler?
Biggest bet I've taken. Honestly, I feel like I started my entrepreneurial journey playing online poker. Probably like I played in the heyday of online poker when I was like 17 or 18 years old. I was playing at tables with like $10,000 across like 6 different tables, like playing, crazy amounts of poker with crazy amounts of money. I started with like $50 and just built up a bankroll, and but I eventually quit that, and then I moved on to adult gambling and started trying to day trade the stock market, and that worked out way worse actually. So I learned not to do that too. But I've always like enjoyed risk and tried to figure out creative ways to make money.
Like when you look at your business, and you've been around for a minute, so like I feel like as agencies, especially like as they mature and they're just in the game longer, and this is kind of true for any business too, like the risk of like staying open another year actually kind of decreases over time. And it's not true for every industry, it's not true for every business, but I feel like that's kind of the case for a lot of businesses. How do you feel about your business now compared to back in 2016? Do you feel like it's as risky or more like riskier than it was before? Like, what's your take on it?
I don't feel like it's risky. I don't feel like it's too risky at all. I mean, There's a lot less risk, and honestly, I think it's a lot easier running like a service-based business as opposed to like a product-based business. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I think the other thing that happens is that if you do a really great job for clients, you end up with clients that are just going to keep working with you. That's not everybody. You can be like incredible and not, there's going to be people who switch agencies like every 3 months or like they'll work with you for a year and then they're like curious about working with someone else. But you'll develop some clients that will consistently stay with you because you've done a great job for their business. They trust you. They know that you're that you know what you're doing, and they continue to see growth. So I think that in that sense, like it probably like over time that builds. So that's probably part of what helps you have like less risk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to do some like quick rapid fire and then before we jump, but the first rapid fire question that I have is like, what's the best client win that you have? Do you have a great like case study you want to talk about?
Oh, so I'll talk about Replo, right?
Oh, sweet. There we go.
That's why we're here. We have a client we've been working with for 2 months. They came to us with $0 in sales, and they're on pace right now after 2 months to be at like 8.8 million for the year. Wow. Yeah. So, and we did that through really improving ads and improving the offer and the landing page. And I can say, because we A/B test everything, even Replo pages, right? So when we create a new Replo page, we're going to do a redirect test, and we're going to test the current page against it in Google Optimize. And through the various tests that we've done, we've increased our revenue per session 54% with Replo pages.
I'll let you keep going, man, because that's fantastic. That's crazy though. Like, so they had done $0 in sales, and now they're on pace to do eight almost $9 million. Yeah, and so it's obviously it's not just like a Replo page. You said it's the offer. It's like the consistent iteration and testing. What were some of like the mindset aspects of the client that allowed you to go out? Like, obviously, like I think really great agency folks, they're able to like, they know the tools, they know how to like build the scale, but it's like usually the client is a bottleneck. So like, what was different about this client that allowed them to scale?
That's so smart, and that's so funny that you say that, because I think the exact same thing happens, but obviously I'm biased too. Like, I think we know what we're doing, and sometimes clients will get in their own way. But honestly, you're right. What happened with this client is he just came to us and said, "You're the experts to do whatever you want," right? So I'm like, I think we might need to change the price of the product. He's like, make it whatever price you think it needs to be. Like, he basically has given us the ability to just do anything that we want. We want to make a design change, we just make it. We want to create an ad, we just make it. There's nothing slowing us down in terms of like getting approval on anything. In terms of like, we're thinking of things that are outside of the box and just doing them, and not really being scared that like a client's going to see an ad that's producing like a 4x ROAS, but like isn't on brand, and they're going to be unhappy, So him just enabling us to kind of do whatever we want has enabled us to scale really, really quickly.
It's amazing. That's so cool. Like, we're going to definitely package that up as a case study, because that's so nuts. And then like we got to like have some follow-up conversations about like the process there, because that's like the dream scenario, right? Like, you launch, you work with somebody that knows what they're doing, and then boom, like you're making those millies.
So let me pause you right there for 1 second. So what I'll say is really cool is when you like, we always think of revenue per session. How much revenue are we making on any given session? And that's because revenue per session takes into account average order value and conversion rate. If you just talk about like, how much do we increase our conversion rate, but all of a sudden your average order value's gone down, or it's stayed the same. It's just a very different ballgame than when you keep increasing it. And when you increase your revenue per session by 54%, and you maintain the same current level of spend, what happens is your ROAS increases by 54%. And when your ROAS increases by 54%, that means you're making a lot more money. So, we kind of ran the test. And like one of the last ones we did, it was something like we were at like $14,000 a day in sales. And I was like, whoa, we just saw like a huge jump. Like we just saw a 30% jump. Like if we turn this over to this landing page now, we should see that we'd start doing $21,000 a day in sales. And we did. We turned it over, and it immediately shot up to there. So yeah, that's why CRO is so important and why landing pages can be super important.
That's fantastic. And having like a good testing framework and being able to launch things quickly with good, like a hypothesis behind it. It's not just like anyone can spin up a landing page and just start running traffic to it, but having a good like hypothesis around like why these things are going to work, what, the specific levers are, I think is super critical. Another like quick thought, like what is like the biggest lesson that you've learned from, starting your business back in 2016 to now with relation to growth for clients? So what's like the number one thing that I guess you would tell clients, hey, like this is what you should be focused on if you want to grow?
I don't know if it's from like being in marketing for a while or if it's just from the current atmosphere, but it's you need a pipeline of creative and you need good creative. So you can't just hand us one thing and be like, yeah, I have like a video, so like just run it in ads. We need constant creative because we need to keep testing and iterating and keep finding new creative that works, and develop a formula for what works, and combat like ad fatigue, and also just continuously look for the opportunity to just up level our creative, because just like the landing page can make that huge difference, the creative can too. If all of a sudden, all things being equal, we get a creative in and it's so much more alluring that the click-through rate increases by 54%. It's possible we increase ROAS by 54% by doing that too.
Nice. Okay. Two questions before we jump. One's personal and then one's tied to the business. I'm going to ask the business question first. Okay. What can people expect from your agency over the next year? Like what's like the number one thing, or just professionally, what's like the number one thing that you're really excited to build or roll out or accomplish?
So I'm really excited to just start creating lots of original content for companies, and to also keep improving CRO and keep and start really doing like more landing pages for clients. We have not done as many landing pages for clients in the past, but I think, particularly given how well this one has gone, I think we'll probably be doing a lot more because it really seems like a great lever for growth.
Amazing. And then the final question that I have for you today before we jump is, if you could give yourself advice from like what you know now, if you go back in time and give yourself advice at the very start of your career, what's that one piece of advice you give yourself?
The hardest thing is hiring, right? Hiring, finding great people and whatnot. I think I would probably spend a lot more time thinking about who would be the best person to do whatever it was I was working on, as opposed to like what is the best way to do it. And then also in terms of whatever I was working on, because at that point, I mean, usually you start out as an individual contributor. I would think about process, and anything that I was doing, I'd think about laying out what the process was for it. That way it could become something that could be made more efficient over time, be documented, be transferred to someone else, or you can figure out which components of it you can automate to just increase your efficiency and increase your output. Amazing.
Alex, I appreciate you jumping on the pod today, man. I got to come out to LA soon. Hopefully we can get some face-to-face time. But thank you for jumping on the Design to Convert. It's been great having you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Talk to you soon.